Good morning. My name is Steve Weber, and this is the American Gumption Morning Show, and we are back for another great week of broadcasting here on Spirituality Gone Wild. Oops, I don't have my banners up there. Let's throw that up there. There it is. Spirituality Gone Wild in the what? My right corner. Yeah, my right. And American Gumption up in the left. So anyway, here we are. A few days, I wasn't able to broadcast on Friday. So a little rusty, getting back into it. But have a great week lined up. Planning to do 5 shows this week. Now today, Natalie Coleman comes back to the American Gumption Show for the 4th time, and we're continuing the story of from darkness into the light. So we'll recap a little bit about who Natalie is and what we've talked about in previous episodes, but excited to have her back. This one's going to be a little different than the first 3, in that we'll do a little back and forth, and I'll let her question me a little bit too. So that's exciting. We're looking forward to that. The monologue. Last Wednesday, I did a monologue on spirituality, I called it. And this time I'm going to say spirituality defined, because that was really kind of like an opening salvo. It was like, okay, I got to get this out there and I'll tell the story as I get into the monologue part, why. But I've written about it since then over the weekend, and I feel like I can do a little better job of clarifying that. So I'll have that, and then Natalie and I will probably pick up on that subject, and we'll probably wander into other things too. All righty. Now, upcoming this week, as I said, I plan to be live all 5 days this week. Do not have a guest scheduled at this moment for tomorrow, so somebody may fill in. There's a couple people on the bubble. We'll see. Otherwise, I'll just do a monologue. And but Wednesday, Nikki Roscoe, and she's going to do a meditation, and also we're going to talk about meditation. So that's going to be a fun show. On Thursday, Jody Orgel Brown is joining us, and she is a story of courage. This woman has a great story. It's a great story for her. It is her story, and she's had to dig very deep to face and deal with what she has had to deal with. So we'll get into that. That's coming up on Thursday. And then on Friday, Kristen Owsley, our very own Kristen Owsley from Spirituality Gone Wild, returns, and we're going to continue the conversation that we started about and what she's doing. But basically, she has a direct connection to spirit, and she ends up working with people, and she may do a reading with me, and we've already done a little bit of that, and she says it's personal. So, hey, stay tuned for that, because I'll let it all hang out and let her just see what she's seeing. So anyway, that's it. So Wednesday, Nikki Roscoe, Thursday, Jody Brown, and Friday, Kristen Owsley. All righty. Now, today's monologue. Let's go ahead and shift gears here. And Bettina, thank you one of my most faithful fans. I appreciate your coming in from Seattle most mornings. I know that it's just your time when you're waking up, so it's perfect timing. But hey, great that you're here. Thanks for checking in. All righty, now I want to put the American Gumption banner up there. There we go. And let's jump into today's monologue. So like I said, last Wednesday, I did a monologue, and the reason being is I had 2 conversations earlier that week, one with my 91-year-old father, and he said, "What in the world was that woman talking about on your show?" And then we talked about it, and I explained it, and he said, "Yeah, that's what I kind of thought." And so, but anyway, it was I thought I need a better answer in terms of the conversations we have. How do I explain this? Another friend of mine, we spoke one afternoon, maybe it was Tuesday or Monday afternoon. I don't remember. And he said, "So about this spirituality thing, is it some kind of religion?" And I thought, no, it's not that at all. So, but anyway, my father asking the question, and another friend asking about the spirituality thing. I thought, hey, I need a better answer. I need to I needed to define this in a way that I'm clear. I kind of had an instinct of what it was, but I don't know that I was able to explain it very well. So that was the beginning of the conversation last week, and then I wrote about it this weekend. And I'd like to go ahead and just sort of share some of what I wrote. And I'm not going to read it, but I'll just talk it through. So the first thing is that the Oxford Dictionary definition of spirituality is a concern for the human spirit or soul, a concern for the human spirit or soul, as opposed to material or physical things. So spirituality is not necessarily, well, it's not worried about the physical. It's not worried about, things, material, the physical body. It's worried about the human spirit or the soul. I've added that spirituality is a concern for the mental aspects of life. Now, we all have a brain, and, that does a lot of thinking. And, how do we keep that brain operating at a high level and a high functioning where it's not doing sabotage to us, but it's actually helping us? And so that little voice that chatters away incessantly inside of our head, spirituality is getting control of that little voice and taking charge of it and saying that, hey, I'm in charge of it. That little voice is not in charge. So in my mind, spirituality is that aspect also. Spirituality is also consciousness. Now, and I'm going to show it. Let me do a screen share. This is from Lauren Archer last week when she was on Tuesday. Here we go. And she had the map of consciousness where, the quadrant broke up in the physical in the northwest corner, and then intellectual below it, the southwest corner, emotional in the northeast, and then in the southeast is the spiritual. So with this map in mind, I just want to read this. Spirituality is consciousness. Consciousness is the connection of body, mind, emotions, and spirit. Now, the body, mind, and emotions emanate from the physical, and the spirit comes from the non-physical, or that inner dimension that we have. So if you look in the southeast corner, that's really where the spiritual side of it, and the other three come more from the physical. And you can see the spiritual and the physical are directly opposite corners. Now, the intellectual and the emotional, they kind of cross into that spiritual side too. But let's just, for the sake of this conversation, say that those three really are felt in the body. And then there's this other realm, this inner dimension. Now, historically, in religious terms, what was that spirit called? Well, God, heaven, the afterlife. I come from a Christian background, Catholic to be specific, and certainly the Holy Spirit was a big part of that. But the idea of God, the heaven, the afterlife, that was very much in the conversation that I had. Now, today, I prefer to call the spiritual world spirit, or the universe, or the quantum field. And I like the quantum field because it's really kind of more of a scientific based conversation that we're having. So science is actually beginning to, be able to do some measuring when they get into the quantum and how things connect to each other, how thoughts become things, and energy becomes matter. And so I'm not going to say that I'm a quantum physicist and able to explain that, but I've been a curious student about that these last couple of years, and I'm making it one of my priorities to figure some of these things out and to be able to explain them. So I think that I like personally, universe was my term for a long time. Lots of people who do this type of work call it spirit, and that's perfectly acceptable. And the quantum field has a little bit more of a scientific idea to it. So I like that also. All righty. Now, spirituality is also a connection of the physical world to the spiritual world. So if you talk about spirituality, how do we connect it? What's that portal that connects those things? And this is again from Lauren Archer's slides last week. And she says the heart is the portal between your internal and external worlds. And so the heart, and people who use the energy centers or the chakras, the three above the heart and the three below, and the three below are the more on the physical side, your the stomach, the reproductive organs, and then of course up on above we have the head, the brain, the throat area, the speaking. So anyway, the different energy centers, but the heart becomes that portal. So connecting. So for me, again, spirituality is the connection of the physical and that spiritual part. So this is these are all the ideas that I have. The problem or the challenge with spirituality is that it's like everybody gets to name it whatever they want to name it, and or they get to believe whatever it believes to them. In my particular case, I do not believe, I'm not advocating for any type of, religious process, or I'm not advocating for any organized religion. If those are the things that you practice, then that is wonderful. And, that's, and that is your spirituality. That becomes your, your belief system. And that's the belief system. I certainly came from the organized religions. And so I understand that, and I accept that and appreciate that, and think there's many, many good things about all of that. All righty. So that's really, kind of my quick version of what I believe spirituality is. Let's just go ahead and kind of recap it. It's a concern for the human spirit. And it's also a concern for the mental aspects of life. Spirituality is consciousness, and consciousness is that connection of body, mind, emotions, and spirit. And the body, mind, and emotions emanate from the physical, while the spirit comes from the non-physical. So you have physical and non-physical. And then the connection of that physical world and non-physical world is what spirituality is all about. And then finally, I should say that, I don't lump this, my own speaking of it will not be about any type of religious doctrine or organized religion, but all of those practices, kind of are doing the same thing, in their own way, in their version of it. So that's it for spirituality. One last thing about the American Gumption show, because I did a little bit more defining that. I just want to read one line that I wrote. My original overriding theme when I started this show was Gumption. Gumption was going to, go all through everything. That was sort of the show is called American Gumption. So that was my, what was Gumption, or what is Gumption? Gumption is personal responsibility. I've always, defined Gumption as taking responsibility for your thoughts, for your actions, and for your interactions with others. So thoughts, thinking, actions, the things you do, and then the interacting with other people. Now, I want to add one more line to this, and this came from this is Gumption in a spiritual sense is consciousness. So the one thing that I'm probably standing for above all other areas is getting control of that, that inner voice, that awareness of how we think and how we act. And so I'll just read this one more time. The original overriding theme when I started this show was Gumption, and Gumption has always been defined as personal responsibility. Now today I'm adding Gumption in the spiritual sense is consciousness. Gumption in the spiritual sense is consciousness. So that's my I think that's really all I wanted to say about that. There's more. But that's a good start. So what I'd like to do is now bring in our guest. Let's go ahead and stop the screen share. Let's go ahead and see if Natalie is ready to join us. Hello, good morning or afternoon, Natalie Coleman. Welcome back to the American Gumption Morning Show.
Oh, Steve, thank you so much. I tell you what, a month would not be a month completed without joining you at American Gumption. I love it. I love it. And thank you for welcoming me back again.
Yeah,
fun.
We missed you. The last time I think you were on holiday up in a log cabin when we spoke last. So that's
right. Yeah, that was about a month, just over a month ago, probably.
Good. Well, we were the people here at the American Gumption Morning Show were having Natalie withdraw, and so we needed to bring you back and get a little dose, get our fix of Natalie.
Yeah, and I was having my American Gumption withdrawal, so here we go. And breathe.
Good. Now, This is your fourth time back. The first show we really we focused on you telling your whole story, and it wasn't it wasn't a pretty story, but it had to be told. It's a beautiful story now when we look back on it. But you had your dark night of the soul. You went through many years of addiction, and it kind of all culminated 4 years ago, went into rehab, and of course had a little bit of a failure at your first attempt. You were impersonating a somebody who had cleaned up their act, but then you actually somehow it caught on the second time through, and you went, okay, this is, and you probably had, I don't know, like some kind of a moment when I said, okay, this is it. I gotta make a change here. I gotta do something different. And anybody can go back and listen to that first show, but just give us, maybe a minute or two of what that was like for you, and how did you finally break through to where you got it. You went, life can't go on the way it's been going on.
Yeah, Steve. Firstly, I loved your monologue. And I can't, it's just, it was absolutely brilliant. So big thumbs up there. But yeah, so, I, like you said, I'd find myself in, the dark place of the soul for a long time. And it had got to the point where medical intervention was required, and kind of getting separated from society was the only option at the time. And the journey that I embarked on in the amazing treatment facility did a lot to bring me around to a semblance of physical health, but I had missed the point of really while I was there. And I think it's because I was living in a state of denial, even being surrounded by experts, counselors, and a treatment center where everybody was suffering from, from addiction. I'd missed the point of why I was there. And that was that I had to come to a full acceptance of my problem, of the fact that I am powerless against alcohol, against drugs, and self-destructive behavior. I was offended by the word surrender and wouldn't have it when I was asked, what is stopping you from surrendering? Little did I know that all I needed to do was to rephrase that and let go. And indeed, I spent 3 months being the model patient, client, whatever you want to call whatever it was. But yes, I'd made the work look really good on paper, and I went out and just thought it'd be a great idea to just go and test the waters again and do a little bit of research into what I might be missing, and found myself, buried in a bottle of neat vodka again after a few days out of rehab. And my family put me straight back in. And whilst I'd been in much, much worse places physically, in much darker places, what I see now, the spiritual level that I had found myself in was just the rock bottom. It was just, I was so, there was nothing left inside of me that could carry on with me as I was. And I had a spiritual experience. I had a spiritual awakening when I finally got to the point of acceptance, of surrender, of letting go, of trying to control and manipulate the world as I see fit. And it was the most beautiful, beautiful moment of my life, because it's only, oh my gosh, life just every single day takes on a new hue, a new color, a new vibrance and energy. And life's not easy, and we get thrown stuff, but yeah, I've entered almost another dimension, and it's, it just hooks up so beautifully with the conversation that we're going to have today. Another dimension of living, and that is of a spiritual nature. And so I just become so sick and tired of being sick and tired of being me. I managed to start getting out of my way and letting life flow through the way it should.
Yeah.
And that was like 4 years ago. Yeah.
So that's thank you for at least giving us a little flavor, and we invite people to go back and watch the earlier shows if they want to hear the whole thing. Really the first show was dedicated to allowing you to just go ahead and tell that story, and then after we got to that, we thought, well, we want to come back and talk about the good stuff. From darkness to light. We want to talk about the fun stuff. And so the second show and the third show and now this one, and we when we touched base last week, we said that rather than me interviewing you as much, let's just go ahead and have a little more of a conversation, where we can go back and forth, because you've helped me in my own journey, because we're all on a journey together, and every time we have a conversation, or someone, people tend to bring out something new, or we see what we see in a different way, and it usually just happens, or you just kind of blurt things out. And I remember from a conversation we had, and it might have been when I was on your show, which is Real Talk Steps to Serenity on Speak Up and Empower. And your show is on Monday night at 8 p.m. in the UK, or that would be 3 o'clock here on our East Coast, or 12 noon on the West Coast in the United States. So people can tune in, and you do a Monday night show, and just tell people what's the purpose of your show, and what do you do? What do you typically do on a typically Monday evening in the UK? What do you talk about?
Oh, Steve, thank you so much. So so it's moving out of that dark place of addiction and into a place of light is such a part of me, and I know that recovery is possible. And so I'm so blessed to have been given a platform that I'm able to bring guests on to my show, which is a webcast, as you came onto my show, and it was absolutely awesome. And that's kind of how this all got started. But to share their experience, their strength, their hope, just to get the message out there that together we can recover. So it's people bringing their stories with the hope that it might resonate, even just with one person listening out there who is either suffering or knows somebody who is suffering, and it might make a difference in their lives. So thank you for allowing me to say that.
No, that's great. I think it's wonderful that you're doing that, and maybe to begin the conversation, one of the things, like the moment, like in discussing with you, I remember you were sharing when you were at that awakening point, when you went, okay, something's got to change. You went through your first couple of months in the rehab. You really needed to recover physically, and then you ended up going back for a short period where you had that kind of a spiritual or connection breakthrough. You were physically were in much better position. But I remember you said that what was missing was that some kind of a spiritual foundation that you could build upon. And so you not only had to go through the physical part, but you had to go through rebuilding your own spiritual life. And my guess, we all have some kind of a, as children, and from a family perspective, many of us end up with some type of a foundation. And did you but yours, if I heard you correctly, was kind of like missing. There wasn't enough solid of a foundation to build upon. And so the reason why it struck me is that I had done from about 2009 to 2014 a lot of personal development work.
Yeah.
It was sort of my own awakening. And then I ended up giving up alcohol in 2016. And when I finally just quit, it really was mostly just a physical thing, because I had done like that 5 years of emotional, spiritual work in advance. And so it was almost like I just outgrew the idea that, drinking was something I wanted to do. And I, had to go through the physical withdrawal of it. And, 5 o'clock came around and, I was normal. It was like, that was the time of night that you had a beer or 5. And, you kind of like, so I had like a couple months of just like going through that. But then once that kind of went by, it was, my situation was a little bit different. And so having that conversation and the spiritual connection is what awoken me to that. So I'm not sure what question I have, so I'll just throw it back to you and respond.
What you were talking about was, you observed that I didn't have any kind of spiritual foundation, because, like I said, just as I was talking earlier on, I just spent my life in self-will, and we know that self-will runs riot given the chance. So I spent my life trying to control situations, control the outcome of of life, and manipulate life to my own ends, and held on to the past, feared the future, never enabled myself or understood the concept of being able to live in the present. So I think it comes down to the fact that my bedrock was fear, and that's what drove so much of my behavior and things, and it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon. I mean, our world there is so much fear-based drive. This our media, our world is so fear-based, and I know that my life was that, because I couldn't accept the no, and I was just more concerned about what people thought of me. Well, what I thought people thought of me, thinking what they thought, all of that stuff that just is irrational. And so, and it was all self-will. And the opposite of self-will is, God's will. Whatever God looks like to you, a power greater than me, the spirit of the universe. But I was so, I would say, and I've said this before, I was downright mean and disrespectful of the concept of spirituality, because I couldn't control it, and quite frankly, couldn't touch it, feel it, manipulate it, so wouldn't have it. Didn't serve my purposes, because I was the center of the universe, and not a part of this beautiful thing called life and the universe. And so I think just to go back to what you were saying, you had the presence of mind to start asking those questions in 2009, I think you said it was, to start asking those questions. So you already had kind of the courage to start looking inside, and you started to build a self-awareness and a level of consciousness that so many of us seek, and that served you so well when you needed that strength almost of character to fall back on when it came time to put the bottle down. It's almost like you kind of did it in reverse to me, because for me, there was no human power that was going to save me from myself. There was no human power, full stop. And so I think, and sometimes I think to myself, it might have been a good thing that I didn't have any spiritual base that I could question or shake, because it made me a sponge, Steve. I was just this like sponge of, I'm here, I'm ready. Tell me what I need to do. You can have it all. Let me let go of all of this stuff that's keeping me stuck and blocked from the spirit of the universe. And so it's I love this topic because it resonates so much with me at the moment. And I was just talking to somebody a little bit earlier on, and what do you think? Okay, put it this way. Do you think that there's a shift in the world towards a spirituality, towards a deeper consciousness, a deeper level of consciousness?
Yeah, I do believe it's going on, and I've taken the last couple of years and have been, listening to others and learning from others, and so those others weren't really available. And I think the fact that we have access to so much more information, which can be overwhelming, and like, it comes with its own problems. But if we start to say, okay, this kind of information I do not want to bring into my life because it's not helpful to me, and our news media and our political leaders, when they talk, it's all in sound bites, and it's in what I consider to be, it's really childish in many ways. It's not a conversation that solves any problems. It's just a conversation to make them right and the other people wrong. And so it's very sad. And so the alternative, of course, is now there's people who are having these kinds of conversations and connecting on their own through the power of this internet, where we can form different groups in different areas, and then you can go and you can have these conversations that help to raise consciousness and awareness, and really makes you think, wait a minute, I'm not crazy, I'm not all alone in this. So there's a very big shift going on now. Where it all goes, these institutions that have been in place for 50, 80 years they feel like, to me, they're coming to an end, because I just don't believe them any longer. When I hear what's going on and I look at, again, it's really kind of an immature and childish approach, but they've been doing the same thing for years and years and years. And in some ways it continues to work, but in some ways it's like, who believes this stuff? This is nonsense. We want to live a better life. We want our fellow man to have people are all good, whether they have the same agreements that I do. People are still good, and everybody that I have a conversation with one-on-one, there's no disagreement. We might have philosophical, ways to do, but there's respect, and there's even appreciation for it. And during the election week, I talked about, the two sides. It's like, there's like 5% at each end that we disagree on completely, but there's like 60 to 70% in the middle that, people all want to solve problems and do good things, and we want good things for the other person. So I think that there is a big shift going on.
Yeah, I think so. And, for all the negativity, I think that, social media and media in general can spout out.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the goodness that can come out of technology, the internet, these platforms like yours.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness! Can you just imagine how exponentially the that the purity of thought can expand? You know, because if you and I aim to have a life that's based on common good humanity, and our conversations, involve that, and we bring people in to have that conversation, and more people join that energy and that vibration, surely can only grow. And I think that maybe it's because I'm so technically inept, but seriously, but I just look at it and go, wow, using technology for this higher purpose almost. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. It's inspiring.
I want to share, we have a couple of guests. Raquel Stewart says, you said it so beautifully. I'll assume that she was talking about what you said, but it could have been what I said. We don't know. And then, of course, Bettina checks in and she says, I found my path to spirituality through meditation and discovered how to vanish fear, false evidence appearing real. And through the power of practicing being present, she mentions Eckhart Tolle's book, Power of Now, that I have. That was one of the first books I read back in 2009. So there you go. Yeah, this is
beautiful. Thank you, Bettina.
Yeah. So good things happening. And again, here you are over in the UK, and Bettina is in the West Coast. I'm not sure where Raquel is, but it's like we're all being brought together through spirit and through the internet, through the power of technology. So
it's just it's as if by magic. It's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I want to go back to what Bettina was saying about the power of now. There are so many gifts and so much that I and millions of others around the world have received and continue to receive through this process of recovery, and having, had whatever their spiritual awakening looks like, and however it's progressed and however it's come about them and what stage they're at. The most beautiful thing is to be able to live in the present. One of the first lessons that I was taught, or one of the first messages I was given in early stages of recovery, was one day at a time. And if you can't do one day at a time, do 1 minute at a time. And or 1 hour, or at a time. But because at that stage you just kind of can't. I could not see a life without my substance of choice, or behavior of choice, and that is such a so to deal with the problem at hand is the most invaluable information, the most invaluable message and lesson that I could have hoped for, but it is such a universally applicable mantra. Just stay in the now, take them each moment, 1 moment at a time, because that's really all we've got is the now, and to truly be, Natalie, what's being present? It's just that place of just being, place of just being. But it doesn't happen overnight, does it, Steve?
No,
it doesn't happen overnight.
I mentioned that, I kind of had that like initial 2009 to 2014 was kind of that, foundational awakening. But then since then, it just keeps happening and happening and happening. And just even this weekend, I had a moment where I became aware of 1 minute my thoughts were about something I should have done differently. So now I'm living in the past.
Yeah.
And then the next moment I'm like, well, here's what I need to do, and I'm like trying to take control and, somehow, control what is going to happen in the future. So now I'm living in the future, and this is like in the matter of a few like minutes of each other. And I remember catching myself, and you would have never caught yourself years ago, right?
That's
so
it.
the growth. Caught myself and thought, now what can I do? How can I just bring myself right back down to this present moment? And, because what had happened, obviously you want to learn from your mistakes and you want to not repeat them, but I don't need to I don't need to replay the story 10 times or 20 times or 100 times or 1,000 times. And I've replayed it enough. So now I can move on from that. And then what will happen is going to happen. And there was nothing I could do about it on a Sunday afternoon when I had this like it's within like maybe it was like in less than a minute, where you went from the back and you're worrying about it, and you go, wait a minute, and then you jump to the front and the forward of the future. And so anyway, it is the power of now. And Eckhart Tolle was the the first spiritual teacher who really introduced that in a way that made sense to me, where I read it and I got it. And it was actually funny because I read that book and I didn't know half half the stuff he wrote. I didn't have any clue what it meant. And I just went back and reread it a year or less than a year, maybe only a few months ago. And I was able to, have a much richer understanding of what it's about. And so these things take time.
That's it. So that says that you had grown. You had grown in that time. So you were starting to, speak that language or think that language, live that language and understand it. That's growth. And, I, as a child of 47, and I really do mean it, I am just beginning this beautiful life that I've been blessed to have. I'm almost like a child of 4 years old, a bit of a toddler finding my way in this new world, which is so exciting. I am, before anything, a student of all things that you spoke about at the beginning of in that lovely monologue. The consciousness, the spirituality versus the physical. It's all so new. And last week on the Wednesday, you were talking about spirituality 1.0, and you reserved the right to refresh and to learn and update your understanding thereof as time goes on. And I just love that, because what it comes back to is that silly made up word. I think it's made up, but being teachable. And that's a principle in itself, remaining open-minded and willing to learn, that teachability. And I think it's very connected to being present.
I remember at a conference I attended in 2011 or 12, roughly, and I was in that process of beginning to awaken. And I remember people when were allowed to like volunteer, come up on the stage, and there was a panel of experts, and they would tell the story, and then the experts would give them advice and critique them. And what I saw really kind of surprised me, because these were professional people, and almost to a T, everybody who went up on stage argued with the experts, the panel of experts, about what they were saying. And so I was hearing people, give suggestions. Well, first of all, they said, who wants to come up and kind of expose themselves and be vulnerable, and we'll critique you. And they had this, and then they went up there, and these people, justified and wanted to argue for their limitations in terms of what they were doing. So they believed they were right. And I remember thinking they weren't teachable, or they weren't coachable. And it's human spirit. And it's not so much about them. It was really more like my own awakening, that we need to be like, let's not ask for advice and then, and then just, immediately disregard it. And it's human nature to want to not accept what others say about us. When someone holds the mirror up to us, it's not usually as pretty as it is if we're just standing in the mirror admiring ourselves without anybody telling the truth.
Yeah. That mirror. You were asking. We spoke right at the beginning of this conversation about how I'd had that relapse after a few months in treatment. And I went back in, and I remember sitting in front of my amazing counselor at the time. I was a bit broken, and oh God, I was just I suppose so confused as to why I'd done this and everything. And I was sitting in her counselor's office. And I just looked at her and I just went, why? Why have I done this? And she just went, Natalie, pick up a mirror and take a look at it. Look in the mirror. And that image, it's like it's me getting in my way. Now, it's me that's creating the problem. Again, what I said, it's that self-will, that driving self-will that knows better. And what's the opposite of that? It's God's will. It's the spirit of the universe's will. It's that place of letting go and just being. But the old mirror, you just reminded me of it, and I spoke about it just recently, and I was quite mortified. How dare you, But it all makes sense now. These last 4 years have been amazing. Well, all that stuff that I supposedly was not learning, seriously not picking up at the time. But as time goes on, and this other dimension that I'm blessed to be able to live in so much of the time has created a free space in my mind to start joining the dots of all of that beautiful teaching and messages and everything that that was given to me at that time of struggle. And I suppose what it is it's coming back to just being here and now in a place of peace.
We have, Bettina has also said that I came up with the saying, stop scaring yourself. Then each time I felt fear, I'd realize that I just scared myself. Now I can laugh and, it goes too far in the front or the back. So yeah, that's right. We all have these kind of moments where it suddenly becomes clear. And in my particular case, it was at late 2013. I had been doing the work for almost 5 years, and I went back, and it was with Landmark Education, and I went back and repeated the forum, their basic course, and they had this one exercise called your strong suits, and they had a homework assignment, and I went back to the hotel and I did it, and it suddenly made sense to me, like all the pieces that I had been assembling over the years, and it's like became crystal clear, and I was convinced that this was the way these pieces now fit together. I knew that these pieces were all part of, the issue. And when I realized that, I had a moment where I went, oh my gosh, it's been me.
Yeah.
And I said, it's not them. It's been me.
Yes.
And that was the moment like where I, woke up, and there was a lot of joy about like kind of getting it. But there was also like a lot of, sadness because, I had held myself back, and I had, there were nice people along the way who I had hurt because of, but then you forgive and you go, okay, wait a minute. It was really a blind spot. It wasn't like I was purposely sabotaging my life and causing, stress or distress in other people's life. I was, I was human. And so then you forgive and you go, well, okay. So you accept that, okay, you made a mistake. And really it was a blind spot. You just didn't know, you didn't know what you didn't know. And so, learning to forgive oneself for not knowing what you didn't know. Now, once you know, then you can't, it's like that genie in the bottle. You can never put it back. Once you know, once you awaken. And so as I continue my own journey along this path, and it's funny because here it was last week. I'm like, I need to define spirituality. I need to get clear on what that means. And then I did that on Wednesday, and then on the weekend I wrote about it. And I needed to, get more clear because I just didn't, And so we have a belief. We think we know things, but then we just keep layering it or peeling back layers, and you just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And so then that's when real joy starts to happen, because each of these levels takes you to a new place and a new understanding.
Totally. And it's about keeping an open mind all the way through, isn't it?
Yeah.
And putting aside prejudices, which I could never do before. I could never, prejudiced all the way, and appreciating and respecting whatever path it is, be it organized religion, be it, whatever it is, whatever path others have found that takes them to that place of peace, where it's quiet over here and the heart feels soft, respecting that. Because ultimately we all, I think, all we aspire to be is at peace and internally happy, surely.
Mm-hmm.
And just to respect how others get there. But
peace, as the holidays to come, peace on earth, goodwill to men, or to women, peace on earth, goodwill to all. I mean, this is what we want. So all of our foundational teachings, whether they be, with the specific religion or the Bible or the Quran or some type of they all talk about the same thing in a different way. And so how do you find that for yourself, and how do you move forward? Because ultimately we want, you said it, we all want peace, and it's our job to, find that peace for ourselves, and not let others, we don't have to be responsible for others, and we don't want to allow others to affect us. So if others are on their own journey and it somehow disrupts you, we'll look at it as an opportunity to learn how to live in peace and accept them, and not let that disruption affect you, but encourage, send out the good feelings that they'll be able to find it for themselves. So this is what it's all. This is the human experience. I mean, this is the human experience. Learning to live in that human experience, to me, seems like a really important, piece of this puzzle and goal for it, right? So we want to, like, what is American Gumption? What is spirituality gone wild? What is real talk steps to serenity? It's all about encouraging ourselves and others to live in peace.
Amen. Oh yes. Yes. And experience that peace.
What are you going to talk about tonight on your show? Do you have a guest?
Wow. Very interestingly, I came onto your show. Now, my guest is, I've just had the show that went live just a little earlier on. So it's going to be on, it's going to be re-screen, Facebook watch party tonight. And it's, you know what, Steve? It is so about what we're talking about now. It is the magnificence of spirituality, the personal might of, that journey into that fourth dimension. And my guest, Gary, who lives in a magnificent part of the world out in Indonesia, in Bali, and he too is a recovering addict, and just the gifts and the joys and the possibilities, the limitlessness that having a free mind and being free of ourselves that keep us trapped, he talks about. So it's that's who's on this evening.
Good.
And Butte, I'm so envious. He lives in that stunning part of the world, a stunning island. Worst places to be. So I just find it amazing. And this here, Steve, is the energy, the vibrations that are attracting each other. Because how's our conversation today, on the back of the conversation that you and I had last Wednesday, where you were talking, you were starting to investigate and get to the bottom of your understanding of spirituality for the talk that I had with, that we're having with Gary today, this conversation that we're having now, and so many other conversations
right,
that have been going on over the past week and this weekend around exactly this topic, this aspect.
No, things are changing. Things are changing, as you mentioned.
I believe it.
Yeah. So, well, good. We only have a minute or two left. Yes. Go ahead and put a bow on this and wrap it up. What would you like to share with the audience this morning? And we so appreciate your coming back and continuing to share it, because really your story is one that went from darkness to light. And I love that. And, we don't, it doesn't have to be really, really dark, and it doesn't have to get really, really bright. But if you just keep moving, more into the light, that seems like the right thing to be doing for your lives.
Yeah, no, completely, Steve. And you know what? I always say, that awakening and moving away from that darkness starts with a conversation. And I know, because I never spoke before, and I see the error in that. And if anybody can just find somebody that they're in a place of darkness, find somebody that you can trust and doesn't judge you. Oh, it starts with a conversation, talk, speak, and when it comes out, it gets a life of its own and it receives help. Yeah, and
the best disinfectant is a little bit of sunshine. So
that's it.
There we go.
That's it. Yeah. Talk.
Well, thank you, Natalie. It's right at the top of the hour, so let's go ahead and wrap up. Thank you for coming back. We'll find time for you to come back and continue this conversation. But I so appreciate you and what you're bringing to the world. And the easiest thing to do is just search for Natalie Coleman, Real Talk Steps to Serenity on Facebook, and then typically on 12 noon Pacific or 3 p.m. in the on the East Coast. Or 8 o'clock in the UK, you can find your show. So,
Steve, that is so kind. Thank you. I love being on your show.
All righty. We'll see you again next time. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, darling. Thank you.
All righty. Well, thank you, Natalie Coleman, for coming back again and for just helping to, continue this conversation. And the timing was perfect because, I'm on my own, my own journey. We're figuring this out. We keep moving the ball down the field, as they say in football, but you want to just keep making progress and doing what is doing what feels good from the heart, and connecting the heart with the rest of your mind, your body, your spirit, your emotions. Alrighty, so that's it for today. I will be here tomorrow. Might just do a monologue. Might have a guest. Not 100% sure. Wednesday, Nikki Roscoe. We're going to do a meditation and talk about meditation practices. Thursday, Jody Brown, and she's going to talk about her story of courage, and she is a story of courage. And then finally, Friday, our own Kristen Osley, Kristen O's show, and we'll continue the conversation about spirituality. And she's probably going to end up doing a reading on me on Friday, so that will be fun. All righty, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining us, and I will see you tomorrow.